The year is 1937. The world watches as tensions simmer in the Far East. Japan, a nation fueled by militarism and imperial ambition, sets its sights on China. Nanjing, the ancient capital of China, stands as a symbol of culture and history. Little do its inhabitants know, their city is about to become the stage for one of the darkest chapters in human history. The world is on the brink of war, and Nanjing will be caught in its deadly embrace. A city of beauty, soon to be marred by unspeakable horrors. Japan, driven by its desire for power and resources, embarks on a campaign of expansion across Asia. Their eyes are set on China, a land rich in resources and ripe for the taking in their view. The Japanese military machine, fueled by nationalist fervor, believes in its own superiority and its divine right to rule. China, weakened by internal strife and political divisions, becomes a prime target for Japan's imperial ambitions. In the summer of 1937, the conflict escalates, shattering the fragile peace. Japanese forces launch a full-scale invasion of China, marking the beginning of the Second Sino-Japanese War. The Japanese advance is relentless, their path to Nanjing marked by violence and brutality. Cities and towns fall one by one, their inhabitants subjected to unspeakable atrocities. The world receives reports of massacres, rapes, and widespread looting, a grim foreshadowing of the horrors to come. The Japanese army, driven by a twisted sense of righteousness, views the Chinese population as inferior, as obstacles in their path to conquest. As the Japanese forces approach Nanjing, panic grips the city. The government flees, leaving its citizens to face the advancing enemy alone. Nanjing, once a symbol of China's strength, finds itself woefully unprepared for the onslaught that awaits. Its defenses, hastily assembled and ill-equipped, are no match for the might of the Japanese war machine. The city's remaining defenders, outnumbered and outgunned, fight with courage and desperation, but it is a losing battle. The streets of Nanjing, once bustling with life, are now filled with fear and uncertainty. Refugees from the surrounding countryside flood the city, seeking safety within its walls. Little do they know, they are walking into a trap, a city about to become a living hell. Section 5. The siege begins. A city's agony starts. On December 10, 1937, the siege of Nanjing begins. Japanese artillery bombards the city walls, reducing ancient fortifications to rubble. The sky is filled with smoke and fire, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder and death. Terrified civilians huddle in makeshift shelters, their hopes dwindling with each passing hour. The stage is set for one of the most horrific events in human history. The world will soon bear witness to the barbarity that unfolds within the fallen city of Nanjing. Section 1. The walls breached. Terror engulfs Nanjing, December 13, 1937. The walls of Nanjing, once symbols of strength, crumble under the relentless Japanese assault. Imperial army troops surge into the city, a tidal wave of violence about to break. Panic grips the streets as terrified civilians flee in every direction, desperate to escape. But there is nowhere to hide. The Japanese soldiers, their eyes burning with hatred and contempt, fan out across the city. Their orders are clear: crush all resistance, the rape of Nanjing has begun. Section 2. A deluge of violence. The city becomes a slaughterhouse. The streets of Nanjing, once vibrant with life, transform into a grotesque spectacle of death and destruction. Japanese soldiers, drunk with power and driven by a thirst for blood, rampage through the city. Buildings are set ablaze, their flames casting an eerie glow over the carnage below. The air is thick with the stench of gunpowder and burning flesh. Gunfire echoes through the shattered streets, punctuated by the screams of the dying. The Japanese soldiers, desensitized to the horrors they inflict, show no mercy. Section 3. No Sanctuary. The hunt for Chinese soldiers begins. The Japanese, fueled by propaganda that paints the Chinese as subhuman, target anyone in uniform. Soldiers of the defeated Chinese army, many having discarded their weapons, attempt to blend into the fleeing crowds, but their efforts are futile. The Japanese soldiers, their bayonets fixed, systematically search homes, businesses, and even hospitals. Those suspected of being soldiers, even if there's no proof, are dragged out into the streets. Summary executions become commonplace. Section 4. Bayonets and bullets massacres on an unthinkable scale. The killing grounds are everywhere. Groups of Chinese men are rounded up and marched to execution sites outside the city walls. Others are lined up along the banks of the Yangtze River, their bodies riddled with bullets, their blood staining the water crimson. The Japanese soldiers, driven by a twisted sense of duty, turn killing into a sport. Contests are held to see who can behead the most prisoners, who can bayonet the most civilians. Thousands upon thousands of innocent lives are extinguished, their bodies left to rot in the streets or tossed into mass graves. Section 5. The river runs red, a ghastly testament to atrocity. The Yangtze River, once a source of life for Nanjing, becomes a symbol of the massacre's horrifying scale. Its waters, once clear and blue, run red with the blood of the slaughtered. Corpses, their faces contorted in terror and pain, float downstream, a grim procession of the dead. The stench of death hangs heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the atrocities being committed. Even the river itself seems to recoil in horror at the barbarity unfolding on its banks. Section 6. A city in ruins, the aftermath of the initial assault. As the sun sets on the first days of the occupation, Nanjing lies in ruins. The streets are littered with corpses, the air heavy with the stench of death and decay. The once proud city, a center of Chinese culture and history, has been transformed into a charnel house. But for the survivors, the nightmare is far from over. The Japanese soldiers, their thirst for blood still unslaked, continue to roam the streets. The rape of Nanjing is far from finished. Its most horrific chapters are yet to be written. Section 1. Terror by night. Darkness brings no respite. As darkness falls over Nanjing, a blanket of terror descends upon the shattered city. The setting sun offers no comfort, no escape from the horrors that continue unabated. For the survivors trapped within the city walls, night brings no respite, only the agonizing fear of what lurks in the shadows. The sounds of gunfire and screams echo through the darkness, a constant reminder that death can come at any moment. Japanese soldiers, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames of burning buildings, roam the streets, their bayonets glinting menacingly in the moonlight. The darkness becomes a breeding ground for the worst impulses of humanity as the occupiers descend into a spiral of violence and depravity. Section 2. A reign of cruelty, the sadism of the conquerors. The days that follow the initial assault are a blur of unimaginable cruelty. The Japanese soldiers, drunk on power and fueled by a perverse sense of racial superiority, engage in acts of sadism that defy comprehension. Civilians are tortured for sport, used as target practice, or buried alive in mass graves. Women are raped in plain sight, their screams ignored or met with laughter. Children are not spared the horrors, their innocence shattered by acts of unspeakable brutality. The streets of Nanjing become a stage for a grotesque display of human depravity, a testament to the dark side of human nature unleashed. Section 3. Humanity abandoned. the world turns a blind eye. As the horrors unfold in Nanjing, the world outside remains largely oblivious. News of the atrocities trickles out through the accounts of a handful of Westerners who choose to stay behind, risking their own lives to bear witness to the carnage. Journalists like Minnie Vautrin and George Fitch, along with missionaries and businessmen, document the atrocities, sending out desperate pleas for help. But their words fall on deaf ears. The international community, preoccupied with its own problems and hesitant to antagonize Japan, does little to intervene. Nanjing becomes a symbol of the world's indifference to suffering, a stark reminder of the consequences of inaction in the face of evil. Section 4. No refuge for the innocent, safety becomes an illusion. In a desperate attempt to protect the city's remaining civilians, a group of courageous foreigners established the Nanking Safety Zone. Led by John Rabe, a German businessman and member of the Nazi Party, they declare a 2.5 square kilometer area in the city center off-limits to Japanese troops. Thousands of terrified civilians pour into the safety zone, seeking refuge from the violence. But even within its boundaries, safety is a relative term. Food and medical supplies run dangerously low, and the threat of Japanese incursions looms large. The safety zone becomes a microcosm of the horrors unfolding in the city, a place where hope and despair coexist in a delicate and fragile balance. Section 5. Whispers of resistance, flickers of hope in the darkness. Even in the face of unimaginable brutality, the spirit of resistance flickers among the ruins of Nanjing. Hidden within the safety zone and in the surrounding countryside, small pockets of Chinese soldiers refuse to surrender, choosing to fight on against overwhelming odds. Their acts of defiance, though largely symbolic, provide a glimmer of hope for the oppressed and a testament to the indomitable human spirit. These brave individuals, fueled by a love for their country and a hatred for their oppressors, risk their lives to sabotage Japanese operations and smuggle food and supplies to those in need. Their stories, often untold and unrecognized, serve as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human will to resist can never be extinguished entirely. Section 6. The abyss gazes back, scars that time cannot heal. As weeks turn into months, the intensity of the violence in Nanjing gradually subsides, but the scars left by the massacre run deep, etched into the soul of the city and its people. The streets are eerily silent, haunted by the ghosts of those who perished. The survivors, forever marked by the horrors they witnessed and endured, struggle to rebuild their lives amidst the ruins. The world, slowly awakening to the true extent of the atrocities, is left to grapple with the consequences of its inaction. The Nanjing Massacre, a dark chapter in human history, stands as a chilling reminder of the fragility of peace and the depths of human cruelty. Section 1. Unimaginable Cruelty, the Rape of Nanjing. Beyond the mass killings, another horror unfolded in Nanjing, the systematic and widespread rape of women and girls. Tens of thousands, from young children to elderly women, were subjected to unimaginable cruelty. Japanese soldiers, operating with impunity, roamed the streets, breaking into homes and shelters, hunting for victims. The safety zone, intended as a sanctuary, offered little protection. Women were dragged from their families, their cries for help echoing through the desolate streets. The scale of the sexual violence was staggering, a calculated campaign of terror designed to humiliate and dehumanize the Chinese population. Section 2. Stolen innocence, the targeting of women and girls. No woman or girl was safe. Mothers were raped in front of their children, their cries for mercy ignored. Daughters were torn from their families, their innocence stolen in the most brutal way imaginable. Schools, hospitals, even temples, no place was sacred, no refuge respected. The The physical and psychological scars of these atrocities ran deep, leaving many permanently traumatized, their lives forever shattered. The Japanese military, steeped in a culture of conquest and brutality, viewed these women and girls as spoils of war, their suffering inconsequential. Section 3. Silence and Shame, the Stigma of Sexual Violence. In the aftermath of the massacre, a heavy cloak of silence fell upon the survivors of sexual violence. The social stigma associated with rape in Chinese society, coupled with the trauma they endured, made it difficult, if not impossible, for many to speak out. Their stories remained largely untold, their suffering hidden from the world. Even within their own families, many faced shame and rejection, their experiences minimized or dismissed. The silence, while understandable, allowed the perpetrators to escape accountability and further marginalize the victims. It would be decades before the full extent of the sexual violence in Nanjing began to emerge, a testament to the enduring power of shame and the long shadow cast by trauma. Section 4. A Legacy of Trauma, the Enduring Wounds of War. The psychological and emotional toll of the Nanjing Massacre, particularly the sexual violence, reverberated for generations. Many survivors, haunted by nightmares and flashbacks, struggled to cope with the horrors they had witnessed and endured. Families were torn apart, relationships strained, and communities fractured. The weight of unspoken pain and unaddressed trauma cast a long shadow, impacting not only the survivors but also their children and grandchildren. The legacy of the massacre served as a stark reminder of the enduring impact of war and the invisible wounds that can linger long after the guns have fallen silent. Section 5. Seeds of Resilience, Finding Strength Amidst the Ruins. Despite the horrors they had experienced, the people of Nanjing began the long and arduous process of rebuilding their lives and their city. From the ashes of destruction, seeds of resilience and hope began to sprout. Families came together to support one another, sharing their stories and finding solace in shared grief. The indomitable spirit of the human will to survive shone through as individuals and communities slowly began to heal. Memorials were erected, museums established, and stories shared, ensuring that the memory of the Nanjing Massacre and the resilience of its survivors would never be forgotten. Section 6. A City's Long Journey, From Darkness to Remembrance. The journey from darkness to remembrance has been a long and painful one for Nanjing. The city, once scarred by unimaginable suffering, has emerged as a symbol of both the horrors of war and the enduring power of the human spirit. The Nanjing Massacre, once a taboo subject, is now openly discussed and commemorated, a testament to the city's commitment to confronting its past and honoring the memory of the victims. Through education and remembrance, Nanjing seeks to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated, urging the world to learn from the darkness and strive for a future where peace and justice prevail. The city's long journey from darkness to remembrance stands as a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of human resilience and the importance of confronting even the most painful chapters of history. Section 1. A City Left to Decay, the Physical Scars of Atrocity. The soldiers have left, their reign of terror finally at an end. But the once vibrant city of Nanjing is now a shadow of its former self. Buildings lie in ruins, their facades pockmarked by bullet holes, windows shattered like vacant eyes. The streets, once bustling with life, are eerily deserted, littered with debris and the remnants of a nightmare. The stench of death lingers in the air, a grim reminder of the atrocities that transpired. The physical scars of the massacre run deep, a testament to the brutality that unfolded within the city walls. Section 2. Ghostly Silence. The eerie emptiness of Nanjing. Silence hangs heavy over Nanjing, a silence broken only by the rustling wind as it whips through the shattered buildings. Gone are the sounds of street vendors hawking their wares, the laughter of children playing, the murmurs of everyday life. The city seems to hold its breath, paralyzed by the weight of its grief. Those who remain wander through the ruins like ghosts, their faces etched with trauma and loss. The silence is deafening, a haunting reminder of the lives extinguished, the voices forever silenced. It is a silence that screams louder than words, a chilling testament to the scale of the tragedy. Section 3. The Weight of Silence. A conspiracy of denial begins. In the aftermath of the massacre, a chilling silence descends upon the world. The Japanese government, eager to conceal the true extent of their crimes, enforces a strict code of secrecy. Soldiers are sworn to secrecy, their testimony suppressed, evidence destroyed, newsreels are censored, photographs confiscated, the truth buried beneath layers of propaganda and denial. The world, consumed by its own troubles, seems all too willing to look away, to accept the sanitized version of events presented by the victors. The weight of silence hangs heavy, threatening to erase the memory of the Nanjing Massacre from history. Section 4. Whispers of Truth. Survivors break their silence. Despite the pervasive atmosphere of fear and repression, whispers of truth begin to emerge from the ruins. Survivors, haunted by the horrors they witnessed, find the courage to share their stories. One by one, their voices rise above the silence, recounting the unimaginable atrocities they endured. Their testimonies, often fragmented and incomplete, paint a harrowing picture of the massacre, exposing the brutality of the Japanese occupation. These brave individuals, determined to ensure that the world never forgets, become the keepers of the flame of remembrance. Their voices, though initially faint, gradually grow stronger, challenging the official narrative and demanding justice for the victims. Section 5. Justice Denied. The Struggle for Recognition and Atonement. Decades pass, but the wounds of the Nanjing Massacre remain open. Survivors and their families continue to demand recognition and atonement from the Japanese government. Their pleas for a formal apology and reparations fall on deaf ears, met with official denials and attempts to downplay the scale of the atrocities. The struggle for justice becomes a long and arduous journey, a testament to the enduring legacy of the massacre. The denial and obfuscation by the Japanese government serve only to deepen the wounds, fueling anger and resentment. The fight for recognition and atonement becomes a battle not just for the past but for the future, a reminder that true reconciliation can only come from acknowledging the truth and taking responsibility for past wrongs. The burden of memory. Living with the ghosts of Nanjing. Decades after the soldiers left, the ghosts of Nanjing linger. Survivors, their faces etched with the memories they can never erase, carry the burden of their past. The sights, the sounds, the smells of that horrific winter are seared into their minds, returning in nightmares and flashbacks. The weight of their experiences, the loss of loved ones, the scars both visible and invisible, shape their lives and those of their families. The city itself bears the weight of memory. The streets, now bustling with modern life, still whisper of the horrors they witnessed. The past is a constant presence, a shadow that stretches across time, a reminder of the fragility of peace and the depths of human cruelty. A city divided, the struggle for reconciliation. The Nanjing Massacre casts a long shadow over relations between China and Japan. The wounds of the past, still raw and painful, hinder efforts at reconciliation. For many Chinese, the massacre is a symbol of Japanese aggression and brutality, a reminder of the suffering inflicted upon their nation. The lack of a full and sincere apology from the Japanese government, the ongoing denial by some, fuels anger and resentment. In Japan, the massacre remains a sensitive and controversial topic. While some acknowledge the atrocities and express remorse, others cling to revisionist narratives, downplaying or denying the events. This deep-seated divide, fueled by historical grievances and national pride, makes reconciliation a daunting and elusive goal. Despite the challenges, there are glimmers of hope in the pursuit of reconciliation. Individuals and organizations on both sides are working tirelessly to bridge the divide, to foster understanding and empathy. Remembrance projects, cultural exchanges, and educational initiatives aim to shed light on the past, to ensure that the lessons of Nanjing are not forgotten. By confronting the darkness together, by acknowledging the suffering of the victims, they seek to build a future where such atrocities are never repeated. Education plays a vital role in this process. By teaching younger generations about the horrors of the massacre, about the dangers of nationalism and prejudice, they hope to break the cycle of hatred and mistrust. The path to reconciliation is long and arduous, but these efforts, however small, offer a glimmer of hope for a more peaceful and just future. Section 4. The Weight of History. Lessons from Nanjing. The Nanjing Massacre stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the consequences of unchecked aggression. It teaches us the dangers of nationalism, of dehumanizing the other, of turning a blind eye to injustice. The massacre serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that the seeds of hatred and violence can take root anywhere, at any time. It underscores the importance of empathy, of understanding, of standing up for what is right, even in the face of adversity. The lessons of Nanjing are as relevant today as they were decades ago. In a world still plagued by conflict and division, it is imperative that we remember the past, learn from its mistakes, and strive to create a future where such horrors are never repeated. Section 5. A Fragile Peace, a Call for Tolerance and Understanding. The Nanjing Massacre, a dark chapter in human history, serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of vigilance in the face of hatred and intolerance. As we move further away in time from those horrific events, it becomes even more crucial to keep the memory of Nanjing alive, not to dwell in the darkness of the past, but to illuminate the path towards a brighter future. The story of Nanjing is not just a story of suffering and loss, it is also a story of resilience, of the human spirit's ability to endure even the most unimaginable horrors. It is a story that compels us to confront the darkness in our own hearts, to challenge prejudice and discrimination wherever we see it, and to build bridges of understanding and empathy across cultures and nations. Let the memory of Nanjing serve as a call to action, a reminder that peace is not a passive state but an active pursuit, a choice we must make each and every day. Let us honor the victims of Nanjing and all victims of violence and oppression by working tirelessly to create a world where such atrocities are never again allowed to happen. Section 1. Remembering Nanjing, a duty to honor the past. The Nanjing Massacre, a wound etched deep in the soul of humanity, demands remembrance. Not for the sake of perpetuating anger or resentment, but to honor the victims, to learn from the darkness, and to ensure that such horrors are never repeated. We remember the men, women, and children brutally slaughtered, their lives extinguished in an orgy of violence. We remember the survivors, forever haunted by the horrors they witnessed, their stories a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. We remember the city of Nanjing, once a vibrant center of culture and history, brought to its knees by the depths of human cruelty. By remembering, we keep their memory alive, not as victims, but as individuals whose lives were stolen, whose stories deserve to be told. Section 2. The importance of truth, confronting denial and distortion. Remembrance requires a commitment to truth. The Nanjing Massacre, like many other atrocities throughout history, has been subject to denial, distortion, and attempts to erase it from public consciousness. Some seek to minimize the scale of the atrocities, to downplay the responsibility of the perpetrators, to rewrite history in their own image. But the truth, however uncomfortable, cannot be silenced. The testimonies of survivors, the accounts of eyewitnesses, the irrefutable evidence of mass graves and documented atrocities all stand as a powerful testament to what transpired in Nanjing. To deny the truth is to dishonor the victims, to betray the trust of future generations, and to perpetuate the cycle of violence and impunity. Section 3. A call to action, building a future free from atrocity. Remembering Nanjing is not simply a passive act of reflection, it is a call to action. It compels us to confront the darkness that resides within all of us, the capacity for hatred, prejudice, and violence that can lead to unimaginable horrors. It demands that we challenge injustice and oppression wherever we see it, to speak out against discrimination and intolerance, to defend the rights of the vulnerable and the marginalized. Building a future free from atrocity requires a commitment to education, to fostering empathy and understanding, to promoting dialogue and reconciliation. It requires us to learn from the mistakes of the past, to recognize the warning signs of hatred and division, to create a world where peace is not merely the absence of war, but a culture of respect, tolerance, and shared humanity. The legacy of Nanjing, though born of darkness, can serve as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable cruelty, the human spirit can endure, and the pursuit of justice, however long and arduous, is a fight worth fighting.